Okay, Deputy Laurent is with us now for our daily review of the French papers, first and foremost. Deputy, there's one story really taking press coverage across the world. It is International Women's Day. Relations between women and men, the things that don't change.
That's right. And just, even as we make progress, there's still a lot of work to be done. Let's start with Libération. They always have great front pages. Today's front page is a rather unprecedented move from the left-leaning paper. It's a double spread, as you see in the screen there. Basically, the paper has decided that today male readers will pay €2.50 for the edition and female readers will pay €2, reflecting the 25% gender pay gap between men and women. They assure us that all the extra money will go to the Laboratory for Inequality, which has been battling for days for gender parity in the workplace.
Because it mentions here on the front page that there is a law, demanding equal pay for the same job between men and women done in France. So why is it taking so long to close this pay gap?
Well, Libé has actually interviewed an expert on the issue who says France has made some strides when it comes to things like appointing more women into positions of power. But I quote, half of the working women are concentrated in about a dozen careers. So it still remains very concentrated in one area. For this expert, France needs to enshrine in company agreements these principles of gender equality. They notably look at the cases in Iceland and Germany where they have done this. They've enshrined this into law, and it basically forcing companies to impose gender equality, and that is working quite well. She also looks at perhaps tackling education, the education of girls, and encouraging them to think outside the box, perhaps look at the more quote-unquote male-dominated professions like science, math, and so forth.
Okay, and we are, of course, expecting the government to unveil a number of reforms today, in fact. Let's take a look at Le Parisien again. I'm quite grabbed by its opening 2 pages. What is actually changing for women 6 months on, they say, after that Harvey Weinstein scandal?
Well, we all knew that International Women's Day this year would be very different. It would be taking place in a very different climate. Well, what's changed, Le Parisien is asking. And in fact, in their edition, they've decided to make the word women in French, which is femme, an anagram, each letter standing for one thing that's changed. So family, F is for family. They say taking care of the home and children is a responsibility often falling on the shoulders of women. Well, there's been much awareness raising on how this is essentially a second job for working women and what we can do to help them. E is for inclusive writing, which I'll explain in a second. The 2 M's are for Me Too and mansplaining, man-interrupting, and man-spreading, all things we don't like. In fact, cities like Madrid have actively fought against man-spreading, making it illegal on public transport. Finally, S is for Simone Veil, the 5th woman to be buried at Paris's Panthéon later this year.
Of course, there are 2 E's, the second one standing for equality. But go back to that first one you mentioned, and this inclusive writing, écriture in French, which is why it's with an E.
Hence the reason it's E. It's all about making the French language gender-friendly. Now, the problem with the written French language, at least, is that, for instance, teacher in French is a masculine word. It's le prof. So if you're a female teacher, you're always called as le prof in written language. It's similar for other professions like firefighter, which is pompier, or administrator. So Le Figaro is actually looking at the case of a prestigious business school in the Paris region that is sort of pioneering a move to launch gender equality days aimed at discussing and hopefully changing sexism in the French language.
It would be so much easier, of course, if they went to gender-neutral words, wouldn't it, for us, indeed, trying to speak the language and get them right. Now, there are some, however, critical about this Me Too movement as well, briefly, Dipti.
Well, Le Figaro, the right-leaning paper, their editors are attacking what they call neo-feminism, especially that's prevalent on social media. For instance, the head of a leading feminist group in France controversially said 1 or 2 men in 3 are sexual harassers. Le Figaro says feminists, I quote, have always said their goal is not to make women victims. Well, today the result is not so certain.
Okay, very quickly, let's end with some quotes from Simone de Beauvoir, that woman who led iconic battles for women in the 70s.
Well, let me end with just one quote. She says, no person is more arrogant towards women, more aggressive or mistrustful than a man insecure about his masculinity.
I was afraid we were going to be beating ourselves up. Thanks a lot for that review of the papers, Deputy Laurent. Time now for us to take a very quick break, but we're back with all the latest updates in just a few minutes.